And our guest this evening is New Jersey Governor, Republican Chris Christie. Tonight we'll be getting to know Governor Christie and where he stands on all the key issues. At the start of the program, as always, I'll ask a few questions, and then after the break, we'll get to our studio audience for their questions in what is a town hall style format. Before we start with any of that, let's get a quick look at the candidate's biography.
Chris Christie was born in 1962 in Newark, New Jersey, and grew up in Livingston. He has lived in the state his entire life, except to go to college at the University of Delaware. After college, he graduated from Seton Hall University School of Law in 1987 and joined a private firm where he ultimately became partner. He was elected as a freeholder, similar to a county commissioner in Morris County, and then served as director of the board there. He was named U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey in 2002 and led the team that thwarted terrorist plans to attack Fort Dix. Christie was sworn in as governor of New Jersey in 2010 and was reelected to a second term. As president, he wants to reform Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, as well as the criminal justice system. He'd also like to create a new tax system and make college more accessible for everyone. He is often joined on the campaign trail by his wife, Mary Pat, and they have 4 children.
All right. All that close enough?
That was right on.
Governor, good to see you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for joining. So let me start with the expectations, or maybe the burden of expectations is better. Back in 2012, you were the guy. You were the Republican savior for this party. Now you're stuck in a very crowded field. What happened, do you think?
Well, first off, I decided not to run. So that's the first thing. And I felt very comfortable about the decision not to run in 2012 and very comfortable about my decision to support Mitt Romney. And you never know what's going to happen in politics. And so now we have 17 people in this field, and so it's crowded, and you got to work hard to distinguish yourself. But no one ever gets to be president of the United States without working incredibly hard. And I'm certainly not allergic to hard work, so we'll work hard.
So the bridge thing, I'll be the first to point out you were never implicated in any of this. But do you think that that hurt you or is still hurting you in any way?
I don't know if it still is, but it certainly did at the time. I mean, you had relentless news coverage where I was essentially, tried, prosecuted, and convicted before anybody knew any of the facts. And then, after 3 different independent investigations, they've all said the same thing, that what I said the day after I found out about this was true, that I had no involvement in it and nothing about it. And I did what leaders do. You're accountable. It happened on my watch. And so I fired the people who appear to have been responsible, set new standards in my office in terms of checking on all these different kinds of things, and then move on, because you have 60,000 people working for you as governor of New Jersey. You can't know what each person's doing every day. But yeah, did it hurt me at the time? Sure. And I think it hurt me more than anything else because the media coverage was just so incredibly biased and so incredibly wrong. But you live with it and you move on. And here's the thing. Here I am. I'm running for president of the United States, and I'm ready to let the people of New Hampshire judge me on my merits.
Yeah, and how often are you asked about, maybe not even that specific topic, but just the importance of public integrity and trustworthiness?
Well, listen, I'm a former United States attorney, and in my time as U.S. attorney in New Jersey, we prosecuted and convicted 130 public officials for acts of public corruption without a defeat. We didn't lose one public corruption case in my 7 years and won 130 of them. So people know my record on that. They know how strong it is. And so, no, I got to tell you, up here in New Hampshire, nobody ever asked me about that.
Okay. Well, here in New Hampshire and around the country, you're running a campaign based on telling it like it is. There's a candidate in this race that seems to, do you feel like your message is getting overshadowed or exploited to a certain degree? I won't mention his name, but we know who we're talking about here. And he's taking up a lot of the oxygen. Is it making it difficult for the rest of people to break through?
Sure. It always makes it hard if one person, any one person in the race is getting the overwhelming majority of media attention and free media attention, then it makes it harder for other people to break through. But let's remember something. Let's take a deep breath. It's early. It's very early. People in New Hampshire aren't voting for another 5.5 months. And so there's going to be a lot of time for people to get to know all of us and to make the decision about not who's the most famous or not who's the most entertaining, but who's going to be the best person to lead a country who I think after 7 years has been so misled by the President of the United States that we need a new president who's going to just shoot straight. Tell us what we need to hear and lead and not be afraid to make hard decisions. And I think when people focus in on that, we'll do very well.
And for you, telling it like it is sometimes includes telling a truth that sometimes hurts.
Sure.
And you're obviously open to saying all kinds of different things when it comes to different topics about how you feel about it. In this giant field, though, right now, what's going to separate you, do you believe, heading into the home stretch of the primary after the calendar flips?
Well, listen, first off, Americans for Tax Reform just came out with a report this week that said I've vetoed more income tax and other tax increases as governor than any governor in the history of the United States. If you want somebody who's going to stand up to the Congress as President of the United States and force them to actually do the work that needs to be done, I'm your guy. If you want to find someone who stood up to a Democratic New Jersey legislature and said no to taxes, no to higher spending, cut over 800 programs out of the budget to balance the budget, I'm your guy. And so the fact is that that's what people are going to get to know about me, a very conservative record in New Jersey, and also are the only person in this race that has put forward a detailed plan to reform entitlements in this country, because it's 71% now of all the federal spending is entitlements and debt service. If we continue to do that, Josh, we're on our way to being Greece. And we need a strong leader who's going to say, no, our children's future matters and much, much more than that.
We're going to talk about that and much more over the course of the next hour. What do you say we take a break and get to the audience?
Let's do it.
All right. Be right
Thank you.
back. Stay with us. And welcome back to our conversation with the candidate. Tonight's guest, Republican Governor Chris Christie. Time now to bring in the audience for their questions. I'll jump in as needed if the follow-up is required. But for now, let's get right to it. First question coming from Laura Flanagan. Take it away.
Hello. What message do you want to convey in the primaries to distinguish or separate yourself from the rest of the field?
Well, first off, I've governed in one of the bluest states in America. When you're a governor in a red state, you get to send things down the hallway. The legislature rubber stamps it, sends it back. That's easy. I would give my right arm to have 1 week like that. I've had a Democratic legislature the whole time, yet what we've done in our state is to lower taxes, $2.5 billion on businesses. That's helped to create 192,000 new jobs in the state. We've reformed teacher tenure for the first time in 105 years so that great teachers are protected, but bad teachers can be fired. We've done capping of property taxes in our state to lead for the first time ever in New Jersey of the slowing down of property taxes in our state. And so all that stuff, though, was done, including reforming pensions and health benefits for public workers with a Democratic legislature. So I say to folks, I'm battle tested for Washington, D.C. No matter who controls the Congress, they're not going to make it easy on any president. We know that. And so I'm the person who's been able to deal with reaching across the aisle and making things work. Because I think the biggest thing people are frustrated about in this country is that no one works with each other anymore. And so I've stood by my principles, done things that are right, but also had the experience of reaching across the aisle and working with Democrats to get things done. Because in my state, with a majority Democratic legislature in both houses, if I don't work with Democrats, I'll be sitting alone a lot in the State House getting nothing done. And that's not what's happened in New Jersey. I think that makes me a little bit different than the experience of my other fellow governors who are running. And certainly the folks from Washington, D.C., who are part of the problem, not part of the solution, in my view.
All right. Thank you for the question, Laura. Let's keep it going. Next one coming from Viola. Take it away.
Thank you, Governor Christie. My question is on Social Security. If you're elected as the president, how would you protect Social Security for today's seniors and strengthen it for future generations?
Well, the good thing, Viola, is that I'm the only candidate in this race that's put out a plan on this. Out of 17 candidates, I'm the only one. Here's how we do it. First off, Harvard and Dartmouth have just come out with a study that they did together that says that Social Security, if we do nothing, will be bankrupt in 7 to 8 years. This is not something that we can stand. So here's what I say we need to do. We're all living longer lives. Average life expectancy of a woman now in America is 83. The average life expectancy of a man is 79. And so the fact is that these programs were built for people when they passed away in their 60s. So it's a blessing. We live a longer life. Let's raise the retirement age. I say raise it 2 years and phase it in over 25 years. That means 1 month a year in increase for 25 years. I don't think anybody is going to wind up being hurt by that. Certainly not the people who are on Social Security now or who are right near receiving Social Security. Second thing is, I don't think that the wealthy in this country who retire wealthy should be getting Social Security. And this is how I define it. If you make over $200,000 in retirement income a year, that means you have $4 to $5 million saved. It's thrown off $200,000 in retirement income. I don't think you should get Social Security. Fact is, Social Security is insurance. It's insurance for people who have worked hard, played by the rules, paid into the system to make sure that they don't grow old in poverty in our country, that they don't have to choose between rent and heat and food. And so if someone's making $200,000 a year in retirement income, do they really need a Social Security check? I mean, I know they paid into the system. I understand that. But the alternative in fixing it is what Mrs. Clinton wants to do, which is to take the cap off of Social Security taxes, right? Here's the thing, though. Do you really want to give government more money? This is the same government that told you they were going to put this money in a trust fund. Well, you know what's in the trust fund, everybody? A stack of IOUs. They spent all that money already. So if you have two ways to solve a problem when the books aren't in balance, less benefits or more revenue. Why would any of us want to give the United States government more revenue? I wouldn't. And the fact is, what you're trying to get at when you take off the cap is people who make a lot of money. Well, you're getting at those people on the back end with my plan, because if you have that much money put aside, $4 to $5 million, God bless you. Great job. You did great by your family, and your country did great by you in helping you have those opportunities. But we'll let those folks not get those benefits rather than give the government more money. We give them more money, they're going to find something else to spend it on, just like they did the last time. That's why we have nothing in the trust fund. And that's what I would do to help Social Security. That would save, just so you know, over $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years. That would make that system secure.
Big
Thanks,
topic in this race. Thank you very much for the question, Viola. Next one coming from Mackenzie Nicholson.
Hi, good afternoon.
Mackenzie.
You said that if you are elected president that you would like to repeal and replace Obamacare. Can you tell me what your plan would look like and how you would ensure that low-income families don't lose the access to the health care that they currently receive in New Hampshire?
Sure. Here's what I think, that there's no way that the government in Washington, D.C. should be running the healthcare system for the entire country. It makes no sense from a common sense perspective. Let's take our two states, for instance. We're about the same size. Look at us. We're about the same size geographically, right? But in this state, you got 1.3 million people. In this state, you have 8.9 million people. The differences and the problems between those two states on healthcare are really stark. So here in New Hampshire, when you have people spread out throughout the state, a lot of the problems with healthcare is access to healthcare by distance, that you can't get to the specialist or the type of place that you need to because it's such a long way away. In New Jersey, let me tell you something, we trip over a hospital every 4 miles. I mean, they're everywhere. We're so packed on top of each other. Our access problem is cost. So my idea is this: let's get rid of Obamacare and let's mandate that each state come up with its own plan that works for its state. So the things that work here in New Hampshire may not necessarily work in New Jersey the right way. And what happens with New Jersey and New Hampshire are much different than what should happen with Wyoming or Montana. I trust the governors and the state legislatures to make these decisions. And the other reason I like that is because you can have a greater effect on it. You can't figure out what's going on in Washington, D.C. and get to a Secretary of Health and Human Services or the President of the United States. But you know how we trip over hospitals in New Jersey? You trip over state reps here in New Hampshire, right? You got 400 of them, right? And they're everywhere, man. Everywhere I go, I see a state rep, right? And so the great thing about that is you have the influence then to be able to go to those state reps and the state senators and even the governor and say, this healthcare system isn't working for me. The access point for all of you is to make sure that everybody has access to care both financially and from where they live. We need to develop that kind of system in New Hampshire and in New Jersey. Ours is almost exclusively based on cost, because when people can't afford to get insurance, they go to the emergency rooms. When they go to the emergency rooms, they get bad care because it's not consistent care, and it costs us a lot more. We wind up paying for it anyway. So let the states run these things. Remember what the Constitution says. Nothing, all the powers the federal government have are listed here. Everything that's not listed here goes back to the states. Well, I don't see health care listed in the United States Constitution. Let's let the states do it. I even trust Governor Hassan to do it the right way. And I don't trust Governor Hassan on a lot, but I'll trust her on this and your legislature to work together to get it done.
Quickly follow up, a lot of people are already in the system under the ACA. Is it realistic to scrap the whole thing, or are there parts that work where it can be managed into a...
I think it's absolutely right to scrap the whole thing. And if the states decide they want to keep certain portions of what's been done, that's up to the states. Let them make those decisions. The federal government should not be bigfooting into this area. And, who really believes in this audience or any place else around New Hampshire or in the other states across the country that giving more power and more money to Washington, D.C. is a good idea? I certainly don't.
Thank you, Governor. Let's go to social media now. This one's coming from Facebook. You on Facebook or Twitter?
Yes, I am. Sure, of course.
All right, this one's coming from Peter Ledoux, and he wants to know, what is your problem with legalizing marijuana?
Well, I've got a few problems with it. First of all, it's against the law now. So this is a part of the lawlessness of this president, right? So if there's certain laws he doesn't like, then he doesn't enforce them. So he doesn't like the marijuana laws, he doesn't change them. But then he says to Colorado and Washington, well, if you don't want to follow them, don't worry about it. Sanctuary cities. You don't want to enforce the immigration law in a particular city because you don't like it? Don't worry about it. Don't do it. I know the oath that I took as governor. I took an oath, put my hand on the Bible and said, I'm going to enforce the laws of the state of New Jersey. It didn't say, I'll enforce the laws that I like. It says enforce the laws. So first off, let's say that's the law right now in the United States. If people want to change it, then they got to change it through the Congress. But secondly, my problem with it is it's a gateway drug. I'm standing here in New Hampshire, who has the same problem that New Jersey has. We have an epidemic of drug abuse. We have young and old dying every day, and we know marijuana is a gateway drug. We know it affects your brain. It affects it in a negative way. It affects your productivity, and we know it leads to other drugs and other drug abuse often. So why do we want to legalize something? You know, the argument I get back is, well, alcohol is legal. Well, listen, you know, does that mean that two wrongs make a right? You know, if we have something like that, we shouldn't be doing that. So my problem with it is it hurts young people, it hurts older people. It's not necessary and needed. In our state, we have a medical marijuana program, and I've allowed that program to go forward and treat people who are suffering and who that's the only way they can get relief. That's different. What I think that question is asking is about legalizing it for recreational use. I'm against it. And if I'm president of the United States, get high now in Colorado and Washington, because when I'm president, we're going to go back to enforcing the law.
And as you well know and have spoken about a lot, the heroin epidemic in New Hampshire is a very serious issue. You've talked about the importance of drug courts and the success that you've had in New Jersey. Do you think that candidates need to be talking about also going to the source of the problem, which is across our borders somewhere? Because a lot of people here in New Hampshire are seeing this every day and the effects of it.
Sure. Well, listen, I've said that at the border we need to embed FBI, DEA, and ATF agents with our Border Patrol to try to interdict guns and drugs from coming across the border. But let's be honest with each other. The bigger problem is demand here in the United States. If demand for drugs were not so high in the United States, this stuff would not be profitable to send over here. And so we need to deal with that side of it too. And in New Jersey, what we've done is to say now for first-time nonviolent drug offenders, not dealers, but people who are charged with possession, which is over 50% of our prison population in America right now, that we don't incarcerate those people anymore in New Jersey. We're the first state to do this. We say you go for mandatory inpatient treatment because we want to change lives. I want to save lives in my state. And the fact is we need to treat these folks. It's a disease. And I'll give you the best analogy I can quickly, Josh. Yes. My mother was a lifetime smoker. She knew from 1964 forward that smoking was bad for her. She knew that. She continued to smoke. And ultimately, she got lung cancer when she was relatively young, at 71 years old. No one said to us, don't treat your mother. She's getting what she deserved. She knew it was wrong, and so let's not treat her. Yet we do that with people who are addicted to other drugs. We say, oh, we make a moral judgment on them. They made a bad decision. Well, there's nobody in this audience today or listening out on TV who hasn't made a bad decision in your life, a judgment you wish you could take back. We're just fortunate there, but for the grace of God go I, that it wasn't about drugs. So we need to treat these folks. If we give them the treatment tools, we can save lives. And we're not incarcerating our way out of this problem. Since we've done this in New Jersey, drug courts all over the place, our prison population in New Jersey is down 31%. Down 31%. Try to find another state where you see that happening. And recidivism rates, where you have drug courts, without drug courts, over 60% recidivism. With drug courts, 16%. We can make a difference. And if I'm president of the United States, we're going to have a drug court in every federal district court in this country so that we can stop putting people in jail and start getting them on the road to recovering their lives.
All right, let's move on to the next question, also coming from Facebook, back to back. This is from Maureen Gates. She's asking, big one obviously here, Mr. Christie, Governor Christie, what would you do about ISIS?
First off, if I was president of the United States, I wouldn't have called them the JV and ignored them for a number of years like the president of the United States did. They don't look at the JV anymore. But again, this is the same president and secretary of state who also said we're going to have a reset button with Russia. And after we reset, here's what happened. Now they're invading Ukraine and they've taken Crimea. So what we do about ISIS, first is we've got to understand and learn from our lessons of Iraq. I don't want the United States to be an occupying power in the Middle East. It doesn't work. It never works. So let's start first with our allies there. Egypt, Saudis, the United Arab Emirates, and the Jordanians. They want this fight. They want to take on ISIS. So let's give them the best arms we can give them, the most sophisticated weaponry we have. Let's train them all the way down the battalion level on how to use this weaponry in an effective way. Third, let's give them the best intelligence we can get, human and electronic intelligence, because ISIS is everywhere. They're in Iraq, they're in Syria, they're all over the region. It's not like going after a nation state. And fourth, let's use the United States Air Force to give them air cover to soften up the targets for them to go in and attack. I wouldn't say I'd never use American troops. If ISIS continues to win, we may have to do it so they can't come here, but that should not be our first resort. We should let the allies on the ground in their neighborhood help them to fix the problem, support them. And the last part is, they need a president who knows when he gives his word, he's going to keep it. This president said, if Assad uses chemical weapons against his people in Syria, we're going to take him out. And then when he did use chemical weapons and has killed 230,000 of his own people, the president said, never mind. Allies can't count on you then, and adversaries don't fear you. I can guarantee you one thing: if I'm president of the United States, allies will know America's their friend, and adversaries will know the limits of my patience.
Take a couple of minutes to talk about your plan for immigration and how that also plays into national security.
Sure. Listen, there's 4 steps you need to take to secure the border. First is to build fencing or walling in appropriate places. I am not a guy who favors a wall across the entire border. It's too expensive. It doesn't make sense to do it. And I've never seen a wall or a fence that a determined human being can get over, under, or around. So let's not have these easy answers. There are no easy answers to this. But it's part of it. In urban areas in particular along the border, you need fencing or walling where there's a lot of people. Second, what we need to do is to do what I said before about FBI, ATF, and DEA agents embedded with Border Patrol agents on the border to interdict guns and drugs that are coming across our border. Third, we need to use electronic surveillance. We need to use drones and cameras in the more remote parts of the border to be able to send information back to our Border Patrol agents to know where then to best send human intelligence and to send Border Patrol agents to try to interdict people getting across the border. And fourth, and most importantly, we need to use E-Verify. Remember what's happening here, everybody. Unlike what Hillary Clinton will tell you, these people are not coming over the border to vote. They're not coming here to become citizens. They're coming here to vote. They're coming here to work, rather. To work. They want a job. Well, if we had E-Verify in this country and every employer were forced to use it, and those folks knew that if they came here illegally, they couldn't get a job, the only way to come here and get a job is to come here legally, they would stop coming. And what we need to do is to find businesses in a big way who don't use E-Verify. Part of the problem here, we got to look in the mirror. The business community in this country is part of the problem. They want cheaper labor to make bigger profits. I have no problem with them making profits, but not off cheaper labor. Hire Americans and legal citizens who are here. Do not hire illegals. If you do, you're going to get fined enough that it wipes out your profit. We do those 4 things, we're going to secure the border, and then we can move on to deal with the rest of the immigration issue, legal immigration, which is going to be very important for our country to continue to grow.
Time is flying. We only have a couple minutes left. I want to end with Brian Dooley's question. It's a good one. It's going to be asked to a lot of candidates in this race. Brian?
Governor, how can you assure voters that once you get into the White House and office, that your campaign promises and your campaign policies will become programs and laws when you're faced with the inertia, the partisanship, and politics in Washington? And could you comment maybe on debt reduction as an example of how you would embrace that?
Sure.
We have about 2 minutes.
Sure. All right. 2 minutes to solve that problem. All right, let's do it. First is, for any of us, you have to look at our record and what we've done. I don't think there's a governor in this country who's operated as a conservative in more hostile territory than I've operated in New Jersey. And I have not used it as an excuse for not getting things done. In the 8 years before I became governor, you know how many private sector jobs we grew in New Jersey? 0. 0 in 8 years. We came in, we got a $2.3 billion tax cut put through a Democratic legislature to create jobs. We cut spending. We balanced a budget that had an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget. And we did it by cutting over 800 programs and vetoing tax increases. And we got things done with a Democratic legislature. So first you need to look at what you've done before to see if you can really do it in Washington. I've shown I can do it and I will. But more important than that, Brian, is that you've got to be willing to work with the Congress. You can't just, I'll stand up to them when I need to, but you also need to develop those personal relationships that are really important in governing. It's not an excuse any longer to close down the government. There should be no excuse for that. You're sent there to govern. Do your job. And that means developing relationships. It was stunning to me to find out 3 weeks ago it's the first time Speaker Boehner's ever been on Air Force One. His president's been working with him for nearly 7 years. Let me tell you this. I don't care who the Speaker of the House is. They want to be on Air Force One? Come on. You want to come to Camp David? Come on over. You want to sit in the Oval Office? You want to eat the M&Ms? Whatever you want to do. We got to get to know each other and work with each other. And on debt reduction, I tell you this. There's only 2 ways to lower the debt in this country. Spend less and to grow our economy. We're not going to just cut our way out of this, and we're not just going to grow our way out of it. We've got to do both. And that's why I have a detailed plan on growing our economy and changing our tax and our regulatory system to help to grow the economy. But also look at what I've done in New Jersey. We spend $2.5 billion less on general fund spending today than we did in fiscal year 08. That's not like growth, less growth. No, that's less actual dollars. Try to find another state where that stuff is going on. And so I've done it before. And, you know, I'll use my New Jersey gentle persuasion to get it done again.
See, you did it with 4 seconds to spare.
Not
Brian,
bad,
thanks
huh?
for the question. That's all the time we have on TV tonight, but keep in mind this conversation with Governor Christie continues online on our mobile app. They're going to find 30 minutes more commercial-free of questions from our studio audience.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.